Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Thursday night segment here on the Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live via the International Public Radio right here on the United Public Radio Network 105.3 from the beautiful city of New Orleans. The Outer Realm is fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been with us from day one. We love you, Folgers. It would not be the same without you. And of course, nothing like our intro and outro, courtesy of Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, a.k.a. Justin Snicker, an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, whose music is available just about anywhere: Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, most streaming platforms, and big hugs go out to him tonight because he is under the weather. So get feeling better soon. Mm-hmm. And tonight we welcome for the very first time Robert Lindsy Milne, and he's going to be discussing psychic gifts, astrologies, predictions. Yeah, perfect way to end the 2021 season for the Outer Realm here. In order to participate, please head on over to any of our platforms. Facebook would be News on the Flip Side, Canada's Most Haunted, The Outer Realm, of course, Joe Montaldo, UFO Undercover, International Public Radio on YouTube, UFO Public Radio, or UFO Paranormal Radio, my God, on YouTube, UFO Paranormal United Public Radio.
This just becomes a big
Facebook.
joke between us.
Oh my gosh, I know. UFO Paranormal Radio on Twitch. And hello, Doreen. Hello, Tamara. Hello, Pauline. Mumsy. And we are all here.
This is from Mama LeBlanc.
Gang is all here. Okay. Hold on. Apparently, I did not send the link over to. I was sure that I did. Oh my. Okay, sending that over.
Okay. Well, he won't be long.
We're not.
If you're ready for me to.
I was actually sure I did, but apparently I did not. All right. I'll be okay. Been that kind of a day.
My money's on you doing it.
Yeah, I'm just like, I was sure I copied and pasted that.
Michelle's very reliable.
No, I'm having my moments lately. I'm having a feeling. So anyway.
End of the year.
It is the end of the year. I can't even believe it. I'm grateful because it's been a ridiculous year. Been a ridiculous couple of years.
Yeah.
And kind of, was looking over at some of these because, hopefully we'll talk about a few predictions tonight. But what came up in my newsfeed, of course, is Baba Vanga, right? 2022 predictions. And it basically talks about, this 2022 not being the best year. We're still going to have a little bit of a rough go, but mostly with natural disasters.
And it does look that way, doesn't it?
It does. It says right here.
Taken a turn.
Yeah. It says the world's risk of earthquakes and tsunamis will rise. And she basically states that various Asian countries, including Australia, will be hit by severe floods. The Indian Ocean earthquake will be followed by massive tsunamis that will swallow coastal locations across the globe, including Australia, New Zealand, Indonesia, and India. Okay, I'm just a messenger. But if it wasn't for the fact that she's at like an 85% accuracy, I'm like,
she's incredible. She's very on point.
She is, but it's really frightening when you think about that. It's pretty scary too. And I don't want to get into everything else that she's got written down here, but wow. It's like, holy
really
shit.
On point. Like if people are impressed by Nostradamus,
They call her the Bulgarian Nostradamus?
I think she's a lot more accurate than he was. His were still very vague because I believe because of the time that he had these predictions, where she's more in our lifetime, so to speak. So it's a different read. Where how was he supposed to? He did predict 9/11, but he didn't understand what he was seeing.
No, I agree.
Remember what was that? 15th century?
Yeah, the quatrains and things like that. Yes.
Yeah. So it's going to be different. I have a whole book on it. I did a lot of research on him years ago.
Right.
But you could tear that apart too, though.
Oh, I'm sure there are those who do.
Yeah. He's pretty impressive, but I find her even more impressive.
Absolutely. She's awesome. Or she was awesome.
Yeah, she was.
I see our guest has arrived. If you want to do our intro,
yes, very impressed and so excited for tonight. A Toronto native. So a whoop out for him because so am I. But psychic intuitive counselor, teacher, healer, and a life coach. Love life coaches. He is recognized across the continent as one of the most insightful psychic intuitive counselors of his time. Please welcome Robert Lindsy Milne to the show.
Thank you very much.
Hi,
I've been so excited about meeting you and being on your show with you tonight.
Oh, us too.
I've been sitting here about an hour just getting ready, psyched up just to be with you. So here we are.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yes. We're excited too. We've been since you've been booked, we've been talking about how amazing you're just at the pinnacle, the end of the year, the perfect time to come on.
I know.
That's actually been the story of my career. I was just at the right place at the right time in history. I was in the right place at the right time where psychic awareness and intuitive skills were just being accepted. And my generation took being psychic and or working at that field out of a tea room or the kitchen table and turned it into mainstream. And it's a very different world than when I first started working at the tea room. It'll be 57 years next month.
Wow.
That's how long I've been a professional psychic. 57 years.
That's dedication. That is dedication.
And,
so no, go ahead. I was going to say,
57 years old.
Well, I'm 72. I turned 73 this coming July.
I don't believe it.
I'm honest. 1949. I was born in 1949.
No.
Yeah.
You're a liar.
I can prove it. Yeah. I can prove
I'm
it.
in shock. I'm not playing you. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah. By the way, if I look younger, it's not because of a lifetime of good living, because I've lived a pretty wild life. So
that's the only way to go. That's the only way to go.
You look good.
Keeps you young and youthful on your toes.
I was 15 and a half years old when I started working at a tea room in downtown Toronto. And that's when I began my career. And incidentally, applying at that tea room and getting hired is how I got off the street. I was a street kid, and that's the way I got off the street, working at the tea room. So,
wow, that's fantastic.
A lot of people were street kids at that time in Toronto too, because a lot of latchkey and
Oh, I was homeless. I wasn't.
I
wasn't. Well. It was a wonderful training ground. Actually, the first time I left home, I was about 14 and a half. And I spent the winter in downtown Toronto. And I survived on the streets using my intuition and psychic abilities. And during those, scary times, when I would get into trouble, and kids on the street in those days get into trouble, and not necessarily criminal issues, I was always offered a way to get out of the situation or solve the problem using my intuition or psychic abilities, or an illegal or an immoral act. And almost always I chose to do things the psychic or intuitive way. there was no right or wrong answer or solution, but the decisions that I made directed me in or led me into the area. So based on the decisions I made was the direction that my life would go.
Kept you alive.
It did. Both ways would have. One was using my abilities. The other was stealing or other things. I never ever did that. So, but I almost always use my intuitions or psychic.
People are really interested in mystics. I mean, going back to ancient times, you know. When did you realize you were that you had these abilities?
When was I doing it, or when did I know?
When did you know, or maybe when did you have your first experience where you went, I knew that.
I have all my life. So I'm thinking of one that I can think of at a really young age. I was about 6. I came home from school for lunch, and I said to my mother, Grandma Harris died today.
Oh.
And now Grandma Harris was my great-grandmother, not my grandmother. And this would have been about 1955, maybe 1956. And it was difficult. And by the way, Grandma Harris lived in London. She wasn't in Toronto. And I said to my mother, so Grandma Harris died today. My mother freaked out and yelled at me and said, quit saying these terrible things. And she probably hit me too. And anyway, the next night at dinner, we were sitting around, my sister and I, and then my mother and father. And my mother said, Grandma Harris died yesterday, because news traveled very slowly in those days. And I thought my dad was going to get angry and yell at my mother, or worse, hit her, for saying bad things. But they just talked about it. And there was no rhubarb or hassle. They just talked about it. And I couldn't understand. Other times, Uncle Harold, that wasn't Aunt Sally. Who was that? Now that one got me hit for sure, for that. And I said all these things, and I didn't understand until I was about 9. And my father took me to an NHL Stanley Cup semifinal game at Maple Leaf Gardens. And Boston and Toronto were playing. The series was tied 1-1. And the game was tied 1-1. And they get to the end of the third period, and they have an overtime. When the teams came on the ice to just kind of skate a bit before the overtime period started, I was drawn to number 17 with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I knew he was going to score. I knew it. It wasn't that he was going to score. It was that he had scored. It was that real to me. And anyway, and the game hadn't started, and the referee blows the whistle, and the teams go to the bench, and the starting lineups get ready. And Eamon wasn't even a main player; he was sitting on the bench at the time. And they turn the lights down, and the whole arena, there's about 18,000 people, and the whole building is completely silent. And the referee is about to drop the puck, and I couldn't hold the feelings in anymore. And I jumped up and started yelling and screaming and cheering. And 18,000 people looked at me and my dad. And he said, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, sit down. I did. And the referee drops the puck, the game starts. And I was looking around the building, and I was thinking, nobody knows Eamon is going to score. And then Eamon jumps over the boards, and I think it was Red Kelly passes the puck to him, and Eamon tips it in and scores the overtime goal. And the entire building erupts, and all the flashes, and people are yelling and screaming. And I remember looking around the building saying, other people are different than me. And that's when I knew what I was going to do. That's when I knew that I was different, and why I got into trouble for things, because other people weren't seeing it.
Right.
That's how it happened. It was pretty dramatic, but that is how it happened.
You didn't talk about things like that back in the day. That was a family secret, or it's like talking
they
about
lock you up
imaginary
for
friends
that.
and being chastised.
I
absolutely.
used to hear that a lot. You're going to get
Sure.
locked up.
Yes, that's right.
Don't talk.
And well, I was an adventurous kind of kid, and I didn't realize what I had. I just knew that I was doing something different, and adults didn't know. And on Saturdays, we used to get our allowance, and I went to get my allowance from my dad, and it was $0.25. And I said to him, "Boston's going to win tonight." And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, I bet you they do." And he took my quarter back, my allowance, right? And anyway, that night Boston won, and I doubled my allowance. And I hustled my dad for several years.
It's so much fun, though.
You think he would have gave up at some point?
Well, my father, to the day he died, which was just last August, renounced my abilities. Said that I was a fraud and a charlatan. But I've only been doing the job for like 56 years and more than 100,000 psychic connections.
They don't understand it. They can't get their head around it.
That's right. And I, after a certain time, I never bothered, because I also didn't realize I was taking advantage. And that's probably about the only time in my career where I turned my abilities, my psychic ability, just to hustle somebody. It was about the only time, but it really felt good. I got so good at it, though, I had to let him win, because I was always afraid he'd figure it out. He never did.
No.
See that? No. So part of you did stop yourself. The worst thing is when you get called out at a table in Vegas because they think you're counting cards.
Oh, wow. I've never quite done that, but I could imagine what that would be like. How do you prove you're not counting?
You don't. You just take the escort and you walk out.
Right.
You don't.
Right. Do you get to keep your chips that you have?
No.
They take them away from you too? Okay, this is off the topic, but how can using your mind, having a superior mind by being able to count cards, be cheating?
I don't know how they do it. They have to know the insights of how often they've changed the cards as well, because each dealer comes in with all the decks. So it's not just that. I mean, it is an incredible mind.
You got hassled because you were winning?
I'm not saying it was me.
Okay.
Sure.
I was going to bat for you.
Naughty public.
I'm just saying.
Who's naughty?
There's somebody, a friend of yours,
when you're playing blackjack.
That's always a friend.
You're constantly knowing when to hit that. So it's just a feeling. I think a lot of intuitives have it. What I did after or before that is I would do things for other people, like make their picks on, just because I thought it was fun that I was hitting stuff, but I wouldn't do it for myself. I think it was different for me because I couldn't do it. I felt guilty. So, but I didn't feel guilty that day. I was shocked.
What I've experienced, because over the years, people have come to me and wanted me to, pick sporting events, winners at the racetrack, stocks and things like that. What I've discovered is that when I first start, I usually make a piss pot full of money for me and everybody, or them and me. As soon as I become interested in it for me personally, I lose it all.
Me too.
Oh, you do that too? Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
It doesn't work for me. I'm terrible at picking my own stocks, but I can give advice.
Absolutely.
I don't do it. So please don't email me, people.
Right.
I don't do it, but I used to be able to give that advice and everything. But if I put money on it, I always lost.
Absolutely.
Big. When people say to me, "Do you do stocks?" I'm like,
so why do we think that is?
Because our abilities. Why is that?
Well, does it give us the edge? Why is that?
Well, when we become personally involved, we then lose our intuition and we start to listen to our analytical brain. And then we start thinking rather than feeling or expressing emotions or intuitive abilities. That's why.
Yeah.
When that's the reason. And another way you could say it, if you want, is that maybe that's not what we're supposed to use our abilities for.
I believe that. I tend to believe that as well. It makes sense.
Yeah. So, Michelle, I think that it's okay to make a living, and I think it's really okay to make a living and a good living giving service. Making people millionaires or
that's a bit different.
Is different, or making yourself a millionaire using that psychic ability. I don't think they're on the same wavelengths. I've never met anybody in our field that really scored high in these types of things. They say they have.
It's a little bit, but never like.
That's right.
I agree. I think if you're going to make people millionaires just by interfering, maybe you're just interfering with their path as well. Perhaps, and maybe we're not allowed to do that.
Sure. Maybe so. There's a million reasons. What you learn after you do it for a while is that you lose, and so and we all do. So it's better just to.
I agree with you in one way or another. You do lose. I mean, Sylvia Browne made the mistake of making that comment on live television, and I think it did ruin her. And I do understand why she made the comment, because I could get that. I watched it when it happened.
Sure.
And I remember feeling when she said it, because it's not something I would do. But I remember when she said it, because when you're picking up on life and death, if somebody's near death, it feels like death. It's just not something you should say on television. But I loved her. And a lot of people hate her for that. And she's a woman who made a ton of money off her gifts, and her son continues to on her name.
So I have no issue about the earning the money.
No.
Here's what my issue is. You and me and anyone that does this work or anyone that's alive makes mistakes. And if you're a carpenter and you do a lousy job, they say, hey, you did a lousy job, come and fix it. When we have a bad day, or when it's numerically impossible for one person to connect with and tune into every single person they meet every single time you meet. It's impossible. So there are times when you don't want to do it, but you make mistakes, and some days you have a bad day, and some days you do bad readings. We get called charlatans and frauds for one bad reading. They don't say, oh, well, Lindsy Milne had a bad day or made a mistake. So she got crucified for making a mistake. But when you look at her long career and what she did, the punishment was far greater than the action.
That was severe. I just think that I believe that she was getting on and you could tell that she was changing as she was getting older. And I believe that it was a genuine mistake to come out loudly with it. It would have been better to pull them aside, because it's not something, it's not information I give, but I don't deal directly with people.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, I agree with you that she was crucified because they forget all the good she did. She found a lot of missing people.
Absolutely.
She's brought a lot of deceased loved ones home. And I felt horrible for her in that moment. I'm like, but she was excessively charging for readings. When you're paying
she was making a lot of bread.
A 15-minute reading, Robert, from one of her psychics just because they work for her was $600 US.
I don't. Okay, so all right, I have a slightly different opinion now.
That's okay.
Yes.
That's okay. I'm just saying I looked that up because people were saying to me, because I have her books, and I was like, looked up to her. My niece had a reading from her. It was spot on. And she was just not randomly, but I'll say randomly for the audience, because I believe everybody's in a place at the right time for a reason, and everything has come true. And, I really loved her. I really did. When I looked up the rating, because people were saying, oh, they're charging half for a reading. And I looked, and it wasn't with her. That it was 600 was with one of her employees. I wondered if sometimes that's why that happened. It was like a little, to put you in place kind of thing.
The universe does its own thing.
That's
we're all individuals for sure.
Yeah.
So
I had a similar experience, but different. A big part of my career, I traveled around the world, appearing on radio and TV shows, and I was one of the first of the traveling psychics. And there was, this would have been, what I'm going to talk about happened in 2000 in South Africa. And I had a contract with South African Broadcasting, and I did a tour of the country. And the first show that I did or appeared on was called The Felicia Show. And Felicia was the equivalent of Oprah. She was the African equivalent of Oprah.
Very nice.
And this was a live to air show. And I was talking about being psychic, and I was demonstrating and taking calls on the air and doing readings for people at the microphone. And before the show, I said to Felicia, we can do anything except no blood and guts and gore. Mm. Other than that, you can do anything. So partway through the show, we were going to a break, and I saw this woman going up to the microphone, and I leaned over to Felicia. We were in a commercial, and I said to her, that woman, see her there, not her. Not on the air, not her. And then I got up and I went backstage because I had to pee. And then I came back on. Well,
that happens.
And as I was, it was really close because I got there, when the guy was doing 5, 4, 3, and I got there. And when I looked up, guess who was at the microphone? That woman. Mm. Now, and we're live TV. And now this woman comes on, and I did not want to talk to her. I didn't want to see her on air. And so I didn't know what was going on. I just didn't want to connect with her. So when I, by the way, when I do shows, I don't do very many call-ins anymore, but when I do them, the way I handle it is people call in, they tell me their first name, where they're calling from, have a question written down, but don't ask it. And I just go, thank you very much. And then I just start talking, and I usually answer the question. Right. So cool. with this woman, I didn't get anything. And I didn't want to, and I stammered a little bit. And then I said, I'm really sorry. I'm having trouble, connecting. What would you like to know? And she said, my 11-year-old daughter didn't come home 3 nights ago. Mm. It's one thing, a child missing for 3 days in America or Canada.
Right.
It's different in Africa.
Right.
And I saw what happened to that woman's child.
That's hard.
And there was no way I was going to say to that woman on TV, I never would have said it anyway, that what had happened to her child. There was just no way I would have, and there would be no good reason to.
That's integrity.
Oh my God, I'm emotional.
As I'm sure you know, that what comes through us is not for us. And when we're bringing energy through us, it's got to come out. because even the most beautiful energy for somebody else is not ours. Right. So we can channel anything, providing we get it out of our system, as in to express it. And there I was on live TV. The woman's daughter had been murdered in a blood ritual, in a blood ceremony. Now, I'm not going to tell anybody that.
No.
So I held the energy in, and I kept it inside, and didn't let it go until a few hours later. And I was sick. It was the first stop on the tour. I was sick through the entire tour, and when I got home to Canada, I took 3 months off work because of the energy inside. Have you ever seen the movie The Green Mile? Did you ever see that one?
Yes.
When you see John Coffey, it's when working with energy, it's a lot like that. When you're now they're not necessarily black moths or something, but that is what happens. The healer or the interior, they either take the energy in or the energy comes through them to that person. John Coffey, every time he finished, he would be tired, but in the big time when he took that woman's took her
illness,
that's right, and kept it inside. And then when they drove him back to the prison, he could barely move. They could, and he got into his cage, and he was just totally exhausted and weak. Well, that's what happens. That's called a psychic injury or a psychic wound. And I've had a few in my life, and I was on the stage, and I knew what I was doing, what I was doing to myself, but I just couldn't do it. I just would not do it. So I had an example. But when we're in those kind of situations, it's a sudden,
instinctive,
absolutely. And all of us, well, most of us that do this work, our instinct is to focus on what can we do rather than what we can get.
No, it's true. And when you're in that situation and people are coming up to a podium, and they are coming out publicly in front of everyone with this question, it's almost as though they're prepared for that answer. But if they were to be given that answer, it would devastate them. So it falls on the medium or the psychic to basically show that due diligence and say, "No, I don't think this is something the world needs to know."
Absolutely.
So
I wasn't that.
It's a private moment.
Yeah.
I'm not that broad a thinker. My focus, and it's been like this for a long time. I can't change world hunger. I can't bring peace to the world. What I can do is help the person in front of me, and I'm focused more on that than world events or what other people are doing. So my focus is just one there that I help, and so
one life at a time.
Yeah. That's right, or one experience at a time. Yes. That's right. That's been my focus. That's what I'm not smart enough to see, the way the rest of the world works. I'm pretty good at helping the person in front of me do sorts their life out.
No,
that's how you do it, one life at a time.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. I just want to give a shout. We've got a lot of people tuning in. Hello, Beverly, Tamara, Trish. We've got Rosie. Oh my gosh, who else am I missing?
Wayne.
Doreen. Okay, I think we've got everybody who's just come in that I haven't addressed in the beginning. So, anybody's got questions, just pop them into the chat room and we'll get them out. Absolutely. So I do commend you, for that sort of, response, because it's not an easy situation to be in by any means. So let's get back a little bit to being psychic.
Sure.
Do you believe, a lot of people firmly believe everybody has this ability?
Everybody does.
Okay, perfect.
That's because they do, right?
Yes. Okay.
So I've been over my lifetime have taught a workshop, a 1-day workshop, where I guarantee anyone who sits in my workshop in that day, if they do what I show them or do what I tell them to do, I guarantee them they will do psychic readings for strangers before the end of the day. And if not, I'll give you back your money.
Wow.
And there's been a few times that I had to give back money, but not very often. That's also the way it is with my readings. I guarantee my readings absolutely forever. So if when I do a reading for someone, I guarantee them that they will feel the service that I have given them was worth it. And if at any time from the time I do the reading till the ending of my life, they ever think that the service was not the quality they wanted or needed, they were dissatisfied, just tell me and I'll give you back your money. Just like that. Again, and that doesn't matter if it happened 30 years ago or 30 days ago. But if it happened 30 years ago and you come to me, I'm not giving you back the money in today's money. You're getting back you only
$5.
That's right. That's
right.
That's right.
It's only fair. It's what
That's
you
right.
got, you're giving back.
Absolutely.
So, I love that.
And I do it. And when I do a reading, it's more of a monologue than a dialogue. I don't ask questions. In fact, I ask people not to until the reading's over, because then there's a question period. Most of the time their questions are answered anyway. But when I do readings, I see people's lives from conception to completion. And I go forward and backwards in their life, several times in the reading. And I forgot why I brought this up, because it was this one happens when you get, and I'm showing my, you forget stuff, right? Shit, I forgot what I was talking about. Huh?
You're showing your 50.
Yeah, that's right. And I forgot what the hell I was saying. It was a good story. It was a good thing, but I can't remember what it was.
Well, we're talking about psychic abilities. Can everyone have it?
Right.
We guarantee your readings.
Right.
Okay.
So,
and it's a monologue, not a dialogue.
So now let's get back to the psychic part. So what I say to people is become aware of what's obvious. So when you're going to do a reading for somebody, and I do, I look at the person, I look at them, I see them. I don't stare at them, and I don't oogle over them. I just am aware. I see your hair, I see your face, I see what you wear, I see how you sit, I feel I feel your energy. I become aware of what's obvious. When you become aware of what's obvious, then more becomes obvious. And when you become more aware of what's obvious, then more becomes obvious again. And as you continue to expand your awareness, what's obvious to you is not obvious to others. And that's how, and that's the first step. Being psychic is a natural phenomenon or a natural ability that almost all mammals have. Not just humans, but mammals. And it's the instinct that that caused us to get out of the caves, to evolve and grow. So not everyone. So to say everyone can be psychic would be inaccurate, because there's always, if you think of a bell-shaped curve, at one end of the curve, there is one person that has absolutely zero awareness, absolutely none. And then at the other end, there's one person with 100% awareness, like they just absolutely totally aware. And then the rest of us are somewhere in between that bell-shaped curve. Right. So almost everybody can be psychic. Have you ever been somewhere and you look up and see someone's been looking at you? Or have you been looking at somebody and then all of a sudden they turn and look at you? And again, it's not like, being creepy or anything. It's just you happen to look at somebody and then you make eye contact. or you think of a friend you haven't heard from for whatever, and then you get a phone call, a text, or that's being psychic. Now, just about everybody can do that. So, and the more you become aware of that ability, the more you'll see. Mm-hmm. That's how we become psychic, and practice and doing it, and then failing. Do you ever? I have to put on my glasses.
Yeah. Do you ever zero in on a time frame? Example, a date or year when a client requests it. Do you need to say that again?
Yes. I'm just thinking of the answer. I'm thinking
no pressure.
Of how
we
I
have
want
lots
to
of time.
The question. Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm just Pauline. Thank you for that, Pauline. Yes, I do zero into a time, and yes, I do often could give a day or a month. I do that. It happens. However, predicting time is an art.
Because it doesn't technically exist, does it?
Yeah, well, it's like looking, measuring an event in time is like measuring the distance between two objects in a mirror. So we can see those two objects are there and are alive and happening. But depending upon the angle, do they look like they're a foot apart, or another angle they look like 2 feet apart? So in the overall scheme of things, when looking at time, depending on the angle or your perception of it, could be a year or hell, 10 years. So the skill is, what I do is I see an event, I give the information, I say, and then I look at what would be the longest time that it would take. And I would say between this period and this period, it will happen. And then I'll zero in on this is when it seems to be the strongest. That's how I do it. And then sometimes what I'll do is say, okay, well, this will occur late May, early June of 2022. This is when you can expect that to be happening, rather than on May 29th of 2022.
Yes,
right? Well, yes. Once again, because of the distance and time, as well as you can be a little bit off. But I think if you're a week within the date, you scored.
Yes. Right. There's another for you, Pablo. Do you want to get that one?
Have you found gifts change as we age? That's a really good question.
That's a great question. I'm going to give you a little bit more information. So when I started working at the tea room when I was 15 and a half, I worked there till I was about 21. And I worked there 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. And I would see 20, 30 people, sometimes even 40 people in a day, just one after the other. When I was about 21, and I left it to, well, I used to get into fights with the owner. Oh, I did. And
he's no longer there.
I would either get fired or I'd quit. And then, just before rent day, Mrs. Cox would call me and ask me if I'd like to go back, or I'd call and ask if I could go back. So anyway, so about 21, I heard that if a young man became a priest, he would make a vow that he would say a mass every day of his life. So I decided at that time that this was what I was going to do, my commitment, because I've been doing it, since I was a mid-teenager. I decided this is what it would be, and I made a vow that I would do at least one psychic reading or practice being psychic every day of my life. And I went more than 30 years without missing a day of being psychic. And I still practice every day, or I still do readings now. I have very few days where I don't either practice or do a reading. So coming back to, and I've been doing it for, like 50 plus years, my abilities have become broader, deeper, greater in awareness than I see things that on levels I never imagined existed. And I'm doing things that I never imagined, I never would consider that I do. So I see things on levels that are beyond anything that I've ever known before. Like I said, I'm 72. And but there's a big difference between the types of readings I was doing when I was 35 and when I'm 72. When I was doing readings at 35, they were half an hour, and your appointment started at noon. It was done at 12:29, and then there was another person getting their reading, and it was one after the other, like that.
No break.
That's tough.
Oh yeah,
that's hard. That is really hard.
In my 20s, when I was touring, I would do 20 readings, 20 half-hour readings, and I'd do 10 half-hour readings, and I'd take a 1 hour break, and then I would do 10 more, and then I'd go out partying and get drunk and play all night.
I think you would need that at that point, because I would imagine that you'd need a drink after that.
Oh yeah, well I had and then I'd crawl back to the hotel and I'd do it again the next day. And then as I got older, it slowed down, but so what I was doing back then, or even what I was doing, say 15 years ago or 18 years ago, it was accurate. It was really good for the time, but I wasn't talking about the things and on the levels and what I see as I'm doing now. Getting a reading in the times in my prime, you'd get a hell of a reading. If I wanted to get a reading from me, I would rather have it now than when I was in my prime. When
you're more seasoned.
Yes,
you've evolved.
Absolutely,
yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
And I don't go as fast as I used to, right. and I take more time. The other thing that and answered that question, the other thing I've done since I've been older is taking more time, but I don't know, it was about 20 years ago, I realized that I had done tens of thousands of readings for people, and I had no idea who they were. I knew nothing about them. Right. And because I traveled so much, I would meet somebody and never meet them ever again.
Right.
And by the time I was in my mid-30s, I didn't even, if I did a reading for somebody in the morning and I bumped into them later on in the day, I wouldn't even remember them. It was just one person after the other. And a while ago, I decided that I wanted to take time to connect with the people whose lives I was affecting. And I started adding more time to the reading and just spending quiet, positive time or gentle, quiet time with my clients, so that I just knew something about them. Because when we do readings, we just see a snapshot of that person. It's just what they're doing at this point in time, and we don't know very much else about them.
No, it's just a snippet in time. It's
absolutely,
exactly what it is. Yeah.
That's right. And our job is to just get this person, help this person get through this difficulty. That's what we do. That's our job. That's our calling. So, how do I transmute all that? What energy? What does that mean?
Your energy through clients. Sorry, Michelle.
No, you go ahead.
No, yeah. I was going to say, she's asking, from what I understand from Trish, is she's asking, when you're doing all those readings one after the other, earlier when you said that, she's asking, how did you transmute? What did you do with that energy as you're coming into the next sitter?
Yeah, when you're going from one to the other.
Yes. I was thinking about it. Remember, I was schooled at the tea room,
right?
And those readings were, we got The readings at the tea room in those days were $2.50, and
Wow.
for $2.50,
I want me one of those.
Yeah, that's right.
Now you got to move the decimal point a couple of spots.
Well, yes, that's right. So for $2.50,
but it's.
Well,
I'm teasing. I'm
funny.
teasing.
No, well, actually, I'm stating what you're talking about right now. Incidentally, I'm struggling with what's going to be happening on January 1st, and the numbers that you were talking about were numbers that I was thinking about. So,
oh wow, so we really have to meet up when all this crap is over.
Right. So at the tea room, it was $2.50, and you got a cup of tea, a sandwich, and cookies, and a tea leaf reading and a card reading. Now, I could not read tea leaves, and I could not read cards. Still can't. Yeah. And what I used to do, and how I got the job, I applied. And I called the Cozy Tea Room, and I said I can do readings. And when I got there, Mrs. Cox said you have to do tea leaf readings. Well, looks like so. I just picked the cup up, held it like this in front of me, like that, right in front of me, just like that. And then I just looked at the person and did their reading.
And did the reading, yeah, your own way.
Yeah, and then I put the cards down on the table. I had no bloody idea what the cards meant at all.
But I would. Are hard to read.
No, not tarot cards. It was like playing cards.
Oh, playing cards. Oh, way. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I didn't know what the 7 of anything meant. But it meant that I was going to get $1 for doing the reading. That's what it meant. But I would just point. I didn't know how to put the cards on the table. I would just put them there and say, and I would just do their reading, and I'd be pointing to cards, and I would include whatever that card was with what I was saying. And I never ever really did any other readings except for with my psychic ability and not a medium. So I was just trying to think of what got me on that. So where was the end? Yes. So when somebody would come to me for a reading in the tea room, there might be 10 people downstairs waiting. So I do one reading, and then the next person comes up. But and you get used to being in a crazy place, and with all kinds of interruptions and disturbances. And there was no having hissy fits. You did the bloody reading, and you did the reading because you got the money for it. And it didn't matter if somebody was yelling and screaming down the hall, or somebody else was drunk, or there was a fire across. You did the bloody readings, and it didn't matter whether you were sick or happy or sad. Yeah. You did the readings one after the other.
That. Yeah,
and that's
discipline.
And that was the discipline.
Yeah,
there was a guy there. His real name was Laurie Claus, and he was considerably older than me, and he was the big kahuna in Toronto in the tea rooms, but his working name was Red Hawk, and he was part Indigenous, and depending upon. Anyway, he was part Indigenous, but nobody else knew what the other part was. Anyway, he was much older than me, and he really loved whiskey, and he had a wooden leg.
Oh.
And sounds like quite a character.
This is a real story. This is really a true story. Okay, so this is like a normal day at the tea room. So now, Red Hawk was like, the tea room would open at 11:30, and we would start doing readings at noon. So Laurie would wobble in, part half drunk. That's not like he's on a wooden leg, but he'd come in, and the dining room would be filled, and there would be a lineup that would keep Red Hawk busy for the whole day, and we hadn't even started, and lesser successful or lesser known psychics started making a living off of what Red Hawk couldn't do. His office was on the his room was in the upstairs. down the hall from me, and I was at the edge of the stairs. And if it did get slow, sometimes Lori would leave the building and take a cab to the liquor store and come back with alcohol. And then sometimes on quiet days, and by the way, this was a converted house. And the upstairs were like people's bedrooms, and we were doing their readings in bedrooms during the day. And I never met who slept in the room that I was working in. So anyway, so Red Hawk, when it would be slow or when his whiskey bottle would empty, Red Hawk would sneak out, get a cab, go to the liquor store and come back. And Mrs. Cox didn't like that. So when it would get slow, Laurie would lay down on the bed and have a snooze, and he would take his leg off. And Mrs. Cox would sneak up the stairs and steal his leg and hide it downstairs so that he wouldn't come down the stairs, leave the place, and go get whiskey and come back. So and he would wake up, and I'd be in the middle of a reading at the top of the stairs in my room, and he would hop down the hall, and he would lean over the banister, and the entire the dining room would be filled, and he would lean over the banister yelling. The waitress' name was Pearl, and he's going, Pearl, bring my goddamn leg back.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was trying to do reading. Well, when that was going on, you learn to concentrate. So that's where the editing comes.
Right.
Just and I thought it was crazy that I leave the TV on.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my
wow,
gosh.
That takes discipline, Robert. A lot of discipline.
Well, it was in those days. It was live or die for me.
Yeah, I understand that.
Right. That's right.
But you're highly gifted, so you got through that.
Okay, I'd like to have a debate with you. I don't see myself.
You're the guest. I will do anything for you.
Oh no, please argue with me and challenge me. I hope you do. I don't think of myself as being gifted. I don't think of myself as having a gift. I think of myself as a really hard, dedicated worker. I think of myself that I have a talent, but I worked my ass off to develop. And it's been more than just a job, as in doing readings. It's been my life, and it's been my life purpose. And it's what I was made to do, and I chose it, but in choosing it, I worked really, really hard and committed myself. So I don't see myself as being gifted.
Wow,
it's just natural. Comes naturally.
I see myself as being blessed, but I also see that. And believe my life is a life of service, of giving service, and whether I'm doing readings or whether I see somebody on the street in trouble, I give service. That's the purpose. Yeah. Several years ago, well, early in those crazy days when I was doing like 20 readings a day and traveling around, it was really a high. I was in Vancouver and I was being interviewed. So I was only in early 20s. I was being interviewed by this woman with a big newspaper, and I'll be very delicate. She was an exceptionally masculine looking woman. She dressed very masculinely, and she had a really sour face, and she was interviewing me. And she said to me, how long are your readings and how much do you charge? And I said, my readings are $60 and they're a half an hour. And she said, $60 for a half an hour? How come you get $60 for a half an hour? And I looked at her and said, because I can't get 100. And she went ballistic, just crazy. Oh, I thought it was funny. She just went crazy. And she said, well, yeah, she was interviewing me, right? She said, $60 for a half an hour. You're going to lose your gift. You're too greedy. And what are you going to do when you lose your gift?
That is not greedy at all.
And it was in 1975.
It's still
okay. So that really was a lot of money. But she said, you're going to lose your gift, and what are you going to do when you lose your gift? And I said, well, first of all, I would never lose my gift. But if I did, there would be no purpose for me to continue living, because this is the reason I'm here. And that was my answer to her.
Wow. And how did she receive that?
She wrote a shitty article about me.
I've had a shitty article written about me. It's not nice, is it?
Well, I think Medium and readers are spiritual social work. Thank you to Tamara.
Yes.
I believe that we truly are, and it's not just me. It's all of our people that do this work, and they're. In some ways, I've been lucky, and I know that I have a talent that's highly evolved because I worked my ass off for. But I've been luckier than others, and there are some of people that do our work that hardly make a living, but yet they still do the work, and there are some that aren't as talented or hasn't worked as hard, but they deal with a different type of clientele as well. I would have trouble doing a reading for someone if they had a limited intelligence. I would have a lot of trouble communicating and relating with that person. Mm-hmm. There are psychics. You see, being psychic doesn't mean being smart. Being psychic is being psychic. So there are people that are on that person's level that can give them the same information that I would give to one of my clients. And what I'm saying is that there is someone in our field for everybody, or everybody has someone that can give them the service that we give. Mm-hmm. We're just on different levels, not better or worse. Mm-hmm. That's what I believe.
Yeah. What kind of advice would you give someone who is looking to start this, start in this direction where they are
start doing some readings?
Okay. And
and when you do a couple of hundred, give me a call and I'll help you. But I want to hear about the 200.
You really have to begin to learn. Mm-hmm. You really have to begin it to learn it. Mm-hmm. The more you do, the more you learn.
And there's something, and there is something that you also need to know, and it's as valuable as knowing you can be psychic, is to know what it feels like when you're wrong. Mm-hmm. Because the only way you can find out when you're wrong is you got to fall on your face. Mm. That's how you find out. And when you do that, when you fall on your face and you find out it's wrong, now you know the difference between what you're feeling and what's right, what's incorrect. And incidentally, on my podcast, I have a podcast, my podcast called My Side of the Crystal Ball. And nice. The recent, nice. Anyway, the latest edition of My Side of the Crystal Ball was released on Wednesday, and my mentor from 40 plus years ago was my guest on the show. And he was talking about we were talking about, there was this one time we had put on a spiritual retreat for the group that we were involved with, and this was the West Coast ones, and I was the hot shot, and people, the spiritual people really didn't like me because I was drunk a lot, but I was great at being psychic, and that really pissed them off. And I was part. And I was partying a lot, because they were of the spiritual people believing, you had to meditate for 3 hours before you could do a reading. I drink 4 beers and, do a live show, or 5. So they were, saying, seeing this kind of cross. And I was appearing at one of the events, and I had to do a live performance for these people. And I had a nightmare. Everything I said was wrong in front of 200 people looking at me. Everything. I didn't even get the day right. I messed up the date of the day we were there. It was wrong. It was hell. My mentor from all those years ago, he was there that day, and he brought it up. And I left. I was crushed. I'd never had such a failure. And then George said to me, so what happened the next day? And I said, well, the next day I got up and there was another gathering. I went out and did the show then. And he said, that's right. You did it again. And that was when I also realized it was one of the greatest lessons I ever experienced, was because I now knew for certain what being wrong felt like. Mm-hmm. And that's very important for us.
It is. I think when you take on the responsibility of doing readings for people, you are basically, you have to be diligent, because people will, even though you say, please just, it's going to be an accurate reading, or take it with a grain of salt, because every time you change your mind, you could change your path.
Absolutely.
Right? So people will hang off every single word you say. Yes. I learned at 18 years old when my best
10
friend,
years ago?
Yes. Thank you. Last year. My best friend at the time said to me, I want to know if my boyfriend's cheating on me. And me having no tact went, yeah. Yes, I'm honest. You're my best friend. I'm just going to throw it out there. But I realized she really didn't want to know, because she attempted to take her own life at that point. And I realized this is a really big responsibility to read someone and to give information. I chose to never read. Really, I never read after that. I mean, I'll give the occasional. So if I have a spirit is really pushing me to give information to someone, but realistically speaking, I'm very delicate about how I say, because for me personally, I didn't want the responsibility.
Sure.
That's just
I understand that. 18.
I work in the field in other
only
ways.
18. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly, maybe it is. When I do readings now, and like I say, I'm doing readings differently than I've ever imagined I would, right. And the way I do readings, I've never heard of anyone that does them the way I do. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I do, so let's say someone's coming to me and they're in the midst of a major crisis, their life is falling apart. And as I said, when I do a reading, I see someone's life from conception to completion, and I go back and forth. So when somebody's in the middle of a major crisis, when I start the reading, I start to talk about where they are right now. And then what I do, let's say they're 40. Then what I do is I go forward into the future to say when they're 80 or 85, and I look back through their eyes at 80 or 85 years old, and I describe to them today the way they handled it, the way they think, they feel about the way they handled it when they're old. So I'm telling them, number one, you solved the problem, and number two, you're going to be old. And that's, so I look into the future, I look back through their eyes and describe to them how they feel about the way they solved the very issue that they're stuck with right now. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I do. And when I'm giving bad news, one of the things that I do is I start off, I go to the future, and I talk about how good the result of the shitty period that they're going to be going through.
Right. Which is fantastic.
Right. Then what I do is I come back and I drop a hint, change the subject, and then I come back and I drop a bigger hint, and then I just get it, and then I prepare them for the information, and then I'm gentle but more direct. But I've already told them they're going to be successful at it, and they already know the result. And
what if you get somebody that says, "Just tell it like it is. I want to just like it."
Well, that is how it is.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Yes,
right.
I got an example. Okay. All right. So
okay.
I do. Thank you. So I do a lot of work with people that are dying. I don't want to. It just happens. And when I say I do a lot of work, like I'm not like healing them or shit like that. What I do is look after them. I care, not physically. I care for them. I have a mind link with them. I know where they're at. And sometimes I help them as they're completing their life. So there was this one time, it wasn't a very good. I was going through a pretty lousy time at that point. I didn't want to do a whole lot of work, and I was living in this beautiful old building, and a guy bought the building, and he was sickly, and I still did readings, but I didn't want to do a whole lot, and I wanted to rest, and the building wasn't in very good repair, so I just decided to do stuff around the building. The guy that just bought it was dying of liver cancer. I just knew he was sick. And I looked after the building. It was a fourplex. And then I started helping him with his other buildings because he was sick and he couldn't do it. And after about 6 months, I was running his business for him, and I wasn't even getting paid. But it was what I didn't pay my rent. That's what happened. I got it free rent. So I guess I did get paid. That's right. So there was one, and he kept asking me, did I think he was going to die and stuff like, or what was going to happen? And I would often say, you're alive now, Wayne. Right now, this moment, you're aware, you're alive. Live this moment. And he would say, well, am I going to get through this next crisis? And if he was going to, I told him. And often he would ask me the question, am I going to make it? And the answer was, no, you're not. You're going to die. But I didn't want to tell him that because so I hesitated, and it went on for a fairly long time. And one day we were out, I was driving him to one of the buildings, and he said to me, Robert, I want you to tell me the truth. Am I dying? And I stopped the car and I looked at him and I said, Wayne, do you really want to know the answer to that question? I really think that you should just focus on being alive right now. Don't ask the question. And he said, I really want you to tell me. And I said, please, you don't need to ask the question. He said, please tell me. And I said, Wayne, I don't think you're going to make it. And he went, holy Christ, I'm going to die. Oh my God. And he starts crying and screaming, and I take him back home. And as I'm driving home, his wife calls me, what the hell did you say to Wayne? What's the matter with you? And I said, okay, I'm never going to tell anybody they're going to die again. That was it.
That's a hard lesson. Yeah, it's a hard lesson to learn.
I think people think they want to know, and then it's tough to swallow it because I think I want to know, but then I think, well, if I'm not living my best life now, like it just, there's a reason for everything. But I think everybody thinks they want to know. They always, am I going to have a long life? Am I going to, I don't want to live to be 100 personally. That's just me, but
I do.
I don't. I've always said
I'm going to be a
I don't want to live to be
person.
100. I can't handle bearing any more loved ones. That's my hard thing for me. It's like I can't keep doing it.
I can understand that. That makes sense.
Mm.
And that is what happens when we have a long life.
Yeah.
But it's also our inevitable growth process. It happens to everything on the planet. There is a beginning, there's a middle, and an end.
Circle of life.
Absolutely.
I know, but some of us go through a lot more closer together than others, and it's hard. It's really hard. It's one thing when it's an elderly parent. It's another thing, like I lost a child, I lost my dad. My dad was older, my mom was young, my brother was only 51. So when you lose them younger and you don't expect it, we've had a lot of deaths in our family with my husband as well on his side. His cousin was 16. So when you have stuff like that, people lose children in accidents, and they pile up and they're happening every couple years. It gets to be really difficult to pull yourself out of that dark space. What do you say to people when they come to you and they've had a lot of losses?
I'm sorry. What do I do when, or what
someone
do I?
comes to you for a reading who's had a lot of losses, like many losses
that kind
of loved
trauma,
ones, and that kind
repeated losses of special people in their lives?
I am very gentle and tender with them, and I tell them that their loved one is doing well and is evolving the way they are meant to be. They're meant to evolve, and the energy is around them, and that they are not alone, and that in time they will feel better. And there will be a time in the future where they'll be happy again. It'll be different happy, but you'll be happy. And then I'll encourage them and show them that being happy is a conscious choice.
I agree with you.
And I do it that way. Now, when I remember back in the days of the tea room, like I was like 16 or 17. The first time I told somebody there was going to be a death in this family, this man came to me for a reading, and maybe I was 16. I hadn't been at the tea room all that long. Anyway, I started talking about his daughter, and I said to him, your daughter is a very special young girl. She has a lot of creativity. She's really beautiful to be around. It's very important for her development for you to spend lots of time with her. And starting as soon as you can, spend as much time, because this is going to, I don't know how I said it, but I was telling him that he needed to, because she needed the attention. So I did that reading. Few months, 6 months later, a year later, this guy came back. I sort of remembered him, and he said, I just came to tell you and to thank you. You told me that my daughter was special and to spend as much time with her as I could. And he said, I followed your advice, and we were inseparable, and we did so many things. And he said, about a week ago, she got hit by a streetcar and got killed. And he said, thank you. Goodness. He said, thank you very much for leading me to connect.
That was a beautiful gift you gave him.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that he listened.
Yes. That's the problem. Sometimes people don't. They listen, but they don't hear.
Right.
Or they're just looking for specific things.
Sure.
And
right.
if they're not getting those specific things, everything else sort of goes to the wayside.
I record all my readings. And if somebody doesn't want a recording, they don't get a reading from me. And I've been doing that since the mid 1970s.
Right.
And everybody gets a copy of the reading.
Right.
So what they'll miss, they're going to hear later when they listen to the reading, if they do.
Right.
So, I do my best to cover that. Yes.
So we're going to do a quick sponsor ID and station ID, and then we're going to come back and talk a little bit about astrology.
Okay. I don't know very much about astrology.
Well, whatever you know.
Okay.
All right.
It's not in the bio there, so we're going to go with it.
Okay. Well,
Amelia?
Okay. I'm ready. You are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and myself, Amelia Pisano. Tonight's amazing guest, Toronto native Robert Lindsy Milne, is here with us. We are airing live from 105.3 FM radio in the beautiful city of New Orleans. And we are streaming on UFO Paranormal Radio, International Public Radio, UFOs, Gods, and Extraterrestrials Radio, and every Facebook page you can imagine as well. Our sponsors tonight, the first one, you heard him in the intro, and you're going to hear him in the outro, the voice and the amazing music from award-winning composer Justin Snicker, Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, and you can find his music on Amazon and Bandcamp, as well as find him on social media on Facebook and Instagram, where you can also obtain his music and listen to little snippets. It's amazing. And every night since the beginning, and hopefully till we're gone, Folgers Coffee, we love you. Thank you for making sure that we're here Wednesday and Thursday nights.
So how does, I guess, astrology and readings?
I don't know. I don't know how that ended up in my bio because I know as much about astrology as looking at my sun's sign in the newspaper.
Okay,
so I don't. Okay,
let's just let it go. Yeah, people give readings sometimes. Like, what's your birthday? When were you born?
No.
Where were you? Okay.
Yeah. I ask people, how old are you and what month is your next birthday?
Yeah, because that sort of falls into the same thing, right?
Right, but not.
It gives a personality.
But
profile.
what I'm looking for is where they are in time.
Right. Okay.
And you see, I go forward and backward in time so much, I get lost. And if I'm doing a day of readings, I might have trouble knowing what year or what day or what month I'm in because I'm going back and forth so much. Right. So how old are you right now? What month is your next birthday? And when I start my reading, here we are today in December 2021, psychic reading 4. And I'm always making reference to where we are in time right now.
Right.
Very cool. Do you meditate?
No.
No.
I practice being psychic every day. Okay. I almost never miss a day. And if I don't have readings booked, I will practice. So what I'll do is I'll just simply look inward and focus, and I'll do exercises in looking into different timelines, and I do things like that, which is what I do when I'm doing readings, and so we could also talk about other things than astrology.
No, whatever you want.
Well, I've had a really varied career. There's a book called The Perfect Predator.
Yes, I saw that also.
And the story about this book is not a storybook. This is a real life experience. The author of the book her name is Stephanie Stratti. And Stephanie is a Toronto girl. She came to me for a reading 30 some odd years ago, just after she completed her PhD in epidemiology. And I'd been doing readings for her ever since. And Stephanie now is a professor. She's a professor of epidemiology at the University of Southern California, and she's associate dean of epidemiology at the University of Southern California. Her husband, Tom, has the similar credentials, only in psychiatry and psychology. Wow. Tom caught a superbug, a super virus. And that super virus was, at the time, 100% antibiotic resistant, it was incurable, which meant that if you get it, you die.
Yeah.
I have been psychic to both Stephanie and to Tom. And a year before the incident that occurred. So Tom is a really big guy. He's like 6'5", and he reminds me of an Indiana Jones kind of guy. He's brilliant, and he's a man's man, and he's an outdoorsman, and when he was younger, he was a researcher in the Amazon somewhere, and he got captured by the Sandinistas and just about starved to death. And he's got all these fantastic things. In later life, Tom blew up to over 300 pounds. And the day before this, or the year before this incident occurred, I did a reading for Tom. And I said to him, it was a really positive reading, and the way I normally give information, particularly negative one. And I said, partway through the reading, and I said, by such and such a date, 2016 or to 2017, you will have lost more than 100 pounds. And I said that. This would have been in 2014, maybe something like that. Anyway, the time's a blur. And I said, anyway, you lose more than 100 pounds by this time. And then my style is to start giving the negative information. And then I talked about something that was going on inside, and changed the subject. And then I came back to it and expanded. And then I said, and there is an illness coming, and you are going to be as sick as you possibly can be without dying. And you will lose more, and you will lose more than 100 pounds.
Wow.
And then I said to him, I'm not sure what the destiny is. What I'm seeing is you losing 100 pounds. So you can hear what I've said about your illness, and I'm thinking that if you do something about your health, you could lose 100 pounds and miss the illness. But if you don't, you're going to get really sick, as sick as you can be without dying, and then you lose 100 pounds. And then I said, Tom, it's up to you. You can do this the easy way, or you can do it the hard way. And it scared the shit out of him for a week. And he ate, salads and, stuff like that for a week. And then he went back to his normal self. So Stephanie and Tom go away on a dream vacation. Oh, incidentally, Stephanie happens to be an internationally renowned epidemiologist. She's famous. They go away to Egypt. They're in a pyramid. Tom gets sick in the pyramid. He wasn't very well when he left. So he gets sick in the pyramid, passes out, and they carry him out, and he gets back to the hotel, and he's really sick, and he goes to the hospital, and they diagnose some kind of problem with his pancreas, and then he catches this superbug. And then he gets medevac to Germany, and he's in a coma, and he has this superbug that is incurable. And Stephanie called me from that place in Germany, and it was just coming up to Christmas of 2016. Now I remember, 2015. Sorry. Now I remember. And that time I had the worst flu. I was just in terrible shape. And she called me on Skype, and I crawled out of my bed and got to the computer, and I answered, and she'd been on my mind. And when I saw her, when she came up on the screen, I said, what took you so long? I've been waiting for you. And then she told me what had happened. And the first thing I said is, Tom's not going to die. And I created a mind link with Tom. And I connected with him on an unconscious level. And incidentally, Tom was in a coma for 8 months.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah, wow. That's a serious bug. If it,
Sorry.
No, you please.
He had 7 septic shocks. Went into septic shock 7 times.
Wow.
The scientists and doctors were telling Stephanie Tom was going to die. And I was Stephanie's psychic too. And I thought my job in this was looking after Stephanie. I never considered that my job was also to look after Tom. And I had this this link with him. And I told Stephanie that she had experienced everything that she needed to do to find a cure for this. And all she had to do was look at different details, but the concepts were the same. And she's experienced this many, many times, and that she could find the cure. And she decided she was going to find the cure for this incurable superbug.
Wow.
And she created a team of experts around the world that went on to attack this superbug. And while Tom was sick, I knew what was going, and I had meetings with Stephanie every day, and it consumed my life for more than a year. And I had meetings with Stephanie every day, and I knew what was going on with Tom 24/7 because I had the link. So I knew when he was okay. I knew when his vital signs changed. I knew when he was going into septic shock. I knew when he was getting sicker or weaker. I knew when he was strong. I knew what was going on, and I could tell. Now, I didn't know what the organs were, and I couldn't identify that medically, but I would describe something with a color from my awareness that I knew. I'd be talking about, well, it's pancreas, and it looks like a blue, purpley color, but I wasn't able to diagnose. At the same time, the doctors were giving Stephanie information, and it got that I was giving information what was going on with Tom about 3 days ahead of what the doctors were picking up, because I was connected with him on an unconscious level and they were just on the physical. There was one time when and how I knew that Tom was going to survive. I visualized a candle and the flame lit. And when the flame was strong, I knew Tom was okay. And when the flame flickered, I knew Tom was in trouble. And there was this one point when I was just connected, and I saw the flame was like, that flame was going to go out. And there was something really going on. And what I had sensed is that, Tom had been medevaced from Egypt to Germany. He was cold. He was really sick. He was unconscious, but there was an awareness. He could hear voices around him, the doctors and the staff talking, and he could hear them saying he was dying. He was weak. He was letting go, and he was giving up. And I knew he was dying. And I said to Stephanie, in our meeting, I said, Tom, oh, by the way, and everybody around him was wearing hazmat suits. Everybody, doctors.
I was going to ask you, she didn't catch anything.
No, because everybody was in hazmat suits.
But she was in the pyramid with him.
Yeah, well, he caught the superbug in the Egyptian hospital. The infection was the one I was talking about back when he was in California.
Okay, I understand. Yes.
Right. So he caught it in the Egyptian hospital, and Stephanie wasn't around him that much at that time. And when he got, because he was in isolation, and he was in isolation for 8 months. Anyway, I saw what the flame was flickering, and I knew he was letting go, and I said to Stephanie in our meeting, I said, Tom is alone. Tom is letting go. He needs to see his daughters. Yesterday would have been a good day. Today is a good day. Tomorrow's not so good. And if you wait longer than tomorrow, don't bother. And that night, his daughters arrived in Germany, and his vital signs were really down and low. And his daughters, they put on a hazmat suit and they came in. And when Tom started to knew that his daughters were there, his energy started to get stronger, and the flame came back, and he survived that. Now, there are a lot of psychics, that could have done the very same thing that I did. They would have done it differently, but there's a lot of us out there that are that good. I'm not just the only one, and I'm not that unique. There's lots of brilliant people. Oh, fuck, I'm saying I'm brilliant. There's lots of really evolved people out there. Sorry.
I just adore you.
I'm trying to be honest, right?
Just love it.
You fit
Thank
right
you for
in.
your candidness. You definitely fit in.
So anyway, had I not been there to see that, he would have died.
Right.
Because it wasn't being registered why he was letting go and why he was dying.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 3 different times during that illness that he had that something similar happened. That if somebody psychic or intuitive wasn't on the job, he would have died.
Wow.
So inevitably, as time went on, Stephanie vowed that she was going to find the cure. And she took on a group of the world's greatest minds, contemporaries, and it was a worldwide venture. At first, I didn't want to do it, and I was really nervous about giving Stephanie information, and I was afraid that I was going to make mistakes and ultimately cause Tom's death. And I told Stephanie I was holding back, but being honest, I had always held back in my career. I had always held back for fear of making a mistake. And I told Stephanie that, I didn't want to be the one that caused Tom to die. And she said, because you see, I've always been a one-person act. I've never really worked with anyone else. I don't know that many psychics. I just do my thing. So I told Stephanie that I was afraid that I was going to give her information that would hurt Tom, and that I hold back. And she said, wait a minute. You're not responsible. You're a part of a team, a group of experts in your field, and it's your moral obligation to tell me exactly what you see and feel so that I can look at it and compare it to all the other information that the other experts are providing. Mm-hmm. And if you're holding back, I'm not going to be able to make the right decision. And the decision is mine to make, not yours.
No.
And I thought, oh shit.
Yeah, I'm in trouble.
And not in trouble.
Yeah.
Oh shit. I can let it all hang out with no accountability.
Yes.
Move out of the way. Give me room. It was you're breathing my air. Step aside. And for the first time in my life, I let it all hang out, like psychically. And now Stephanie has a unique skill, very similar to Sheldon Cooper, the guy on
he's my favorite. Right? I watched him before we came on. He's my favorite character on Big Bang Theory.
Okay. Sheldon Cooper has a photogenic memory, and so does Stephanie.
Cool.
And every day, Stephanie would give me an assessment of the information that I gave her the day before or the day before that. Every single day I was getting critiqued on my accuracy. Like everybody involved in the project, and everyone that was involved that help create this miracle. All of us performed to our greatest abilities, all of us. And being untrammeled, as it were, I always knew I was good. I never realized I had the accuracy that I have, and it was quite emotional. Yeah, it is very it is quite humbling, and I even helped Stephanie decide what cure. What one it was narrowed down to three choices, and I helped her make the final decision. And
you were chosen, Robert.
Yeah, well, maybe it was just luck. My number came up. I think that's more likely, because it could have been anybody else's. Yeah, I was just, I was just hanging out at
You know better than that.
You have a beautiful soul. You're so kind. Your light is so bright.
Could it be because of the candles behind me?
True Torontonian as well.
Yeah, Mr. Humble.
So only on TV. By the way, that what Stephanie found, the cure, and she did research, like I said, and it turned out to be something called phages. Wow. And she had narrowed these down. Tom had been in his fourth or fifth time of sepsis shock. And by the way, he had been medevac back to California also. So anyway, Stephanie had narrowed it down to three different things. And she ran it by me, and she said, the first one is phages. And I said, that's the one. And she said, well, there are two more. And I said, that's the one. And then she said, but there are two others to choose from. And I said, but this is the one. And she said, will you listen? Let me just shut up and listen, like, and I listened, and she told me what the other two were. And I said, the first one. And she said, why? And I said, because it looks like little Pac-Man that will attack the superbug, eat it, and kill it. And Stephanie said, that's what it does. And on that, plus all the other scientific evidence, and what I said, and it was me telling her that it would attack the superbug and eat it, and then kill it, and then die. And that's what it does. And that's what made her the choice.
Wow. That's amazing.
Phages are harvested from raw sewage.
Yeah, we're right. They were in the right place for that.
And phages, right. Yeah. And phages is excrement.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, in the 1930s, 1920s, 1930s, in Russia, there were experiments, surgical experiments on people that had lower organ infections, through the bowel and through that area. And what they were doing was injecting fresh stool, obviously, into the people's bodies. And the concept was, the good bacteria will attack and destroy the bad bacteria. And in those days, they were getting some successes of doing that. And then penicillin got invented.
Right.
So people had the choice of, a pill or a turd. And
yes.
So the pill won out. Right?
Yeah, not a turd pill either.
That's it. Yeah, that's right. So the pill won out.
Right.
But they had been doing experiments at different laboratories around the world on phage therapy, but it had never been treated. It had never been injected into a person, like a human, and it had never been approved. And through a miracle of work, the FDA, the American Army, the American Navy, many other different places and countries all got together and created the special phages for Tom. And he was, when they gave him the first injection, and they didn't know if he was going to die or not, if they stuck the needle in, and he at the time was about 5 hours from death. Wow. He was on his way out, and he was injected with the phages, and he didn't die. In fact, he looked a little bit stronger, and his vital signs got increased. Then they gave him another hit, and he got stronger. And I think throughout the night they gave him several different more hits. The next day, Stephanie came to visit Tom. And when she got over to him, he opened his eyes and he looked at her and he said her name, and then he fell asleep, but he didn't go into a coma. He fell asleep.
Wow.
And nice. Over time, they continued to inject him with phages, and he survived.
Wow.
And sorry, your stories and
your stories and scenarios like these are helping other psychics, and you just help my flame keep going. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. Thank you for sharing that with me. And you know, that's very kind of you to say it back, and keep up the good work. And
yeah,
I'm glad we're all working together now, because it wasn't like this before.
No,
still isn't now.
No.
There's still drama in the field, but
things like that choke
for the
me
better
up.
ones. Yeah.
They do. It's always nice to hear. There's a lot of critics out there, so it's nice to have a pat on the back once in a while.
Yes, it is.
Just being here, you're helping so many, telling your stories. You know.
We are slowly nearing the top of the hour. We can stretch over a little bit. Do you have any fun predictions you want to share? No obligation.
Michelle, my publicist, and producer of my side of the crystal ball, informed me that I better have some.
No.
I thought you were going to say,
she's a friend.
You can't do with that.
She's a friend of mine.
Well, she indicated that you know that if I'm going to be on this show, I got to be ready to perform. So
she would. But hey, it's the last show of 2021. It's been a lousy year. Let's pep it up.
And now, if we were in, say, December of 2022, so this time next year, we would be looking back and we'd be saying, wow, what an amazing summer. And through the autumn, all the fear of, you see, COVID is something that is focusing attention. But the attention that's being focused is the unrest amongst different groups around the world, and not just America. It's opposing. And we are in the midst of a major transition. And while the age of Aquarius started years ago, this part of the evolving in the age of Aquarius needs to be done. As we get closer into the late spring, April, May, tensions are rising around the world. And we're all going to be afraid that maybe, you know, a Cuban Missile Crisis issue. No, but we're going to be scared of it or be close to it, but we don't get that far.
Right.
And it you could see, like, you know, 5 or 6 or 8, you know, tough, hard-nosed guys, and they're getting into a bit of a brawl, and they realize that if they get into the brawl, everything's going to get destroyed, like their marriages and their kids and stuff. And this is on a simplistic level, and they go, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't fight." And that is what's going to happen. From that point, that peak point, mid-May, maybe, perhaps April, then people start to negotiate, and the energy comes down. COVID itself is going to be around for a fairly long time through your country, as well as mine, Canada. It's going to be peaking. It's going to be particularly strong for the United States, February, March. Some reason late May, it starts getting more under control. And that by the end of the year of 2022, the virus, the pandemic will be corralled, as it were, locked away or shut down, and then we'll be doing better. People are going to start making more money again. We'll start being friends with our countrymen. We'll start being kinder again. But this is just a revolution of one era to the next.
Yeah. No, I can completely see that. So division becomes unity a little bit at a time.
Yeah. And I believe in America. There's a reason America is the most powerful country. There's a reason it's the richest. And I believe that when America and Americans decide that they're going to do something, they do it bloody right. And it's just going to be a matter of time that emotion and ego will get put aside, and the saving of the country will be more important.
I was hoping you'd say there'd be a change of government in Canada.
Are you?
We're in Canada.
Are you?
I
thought you were American. Oh, you're Canadian.
We're streaming live out of New Orleans. Yeah, that's where
our network is.
Oh, I didn't.
There we go.
That's why
what is this?
Robert, that's why I said, well, let's get together after this crap is over, because I was born and raised in Toronto.
Oh, I didn't know that. Like, I didn't have any information about you guys. Yeah. I just thought,
that's okay.
Because I appear on a lot of shows.
I know.
35, 40 a month or a year. Sorry. And I have my own podcast now too.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yes. So how can everybody find you?
You can. Oh, hey,
this is the part of the show you promote yourself.
Oh, absolutely. So you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, my website, www.robertlindsymilne.com, and on did I say YouTube? And that as well. And if you're interested in a reading, just give me a shout. And if you just want to say hello, please just say hello as well. And
that's fantastic. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you.
It really was.
Oh, it's great.
Sure, a delight.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And have a happy New Year. We're already there.
Yes, we're very close.
Weekend's already. Yes.
And this time next year, we're going to be in a really happy mood, being excited about what 2023 is bringing, as opposed to hoping, oh, Christ, I hope this is going good. Well, that's what we're doing now, right?
We're getting tired.
That's right.
I know. I love it.
So it's good seeing you, eh?
Yeah. Hey, bye. No,
really? Are you guys are Canadians?
Yes.
And Michelle, you are too. So
yes.
So do you pronounce your name DeRoche or?
Yeah, I married it.
Oh, okay. DeRoche or DeRoche? I
kind of got stuck with it because it's my professional name too.
Okay.
So yes, DeRoche. Yes.
Okay. And Paisano, is that you?
That's my maiden name that I keep. I don't use my married name because my daughter's out in the public. So
of course.
Yeah, I used to work a lot of missing children in cold cases. So to protect her then,
yes, of
because
course.
she was on television.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. It's my passion. I'd like to do as much as I can with it. It's just, a long story short, there's so much in between that it's a difficult place to be as a medium.
It is.
I
it is, because you're constant. You can't go to the police because you're a suspect.
Oh, absolutely.
when you work with a team, sometimes those cases come too late. It's hard. It's a difficult road.
What I've discovered when we get called on a case, often the person's dead. And often we get called on a case, it becomes an act of desperation, and the evidence or the energy in the area has been trod upon by so many people, and so much other energy, sometimes it's difficult to separate it.
Yeah.
But you've been doing that. Well, wow.
You can tell me.
No, it wasn't telling. No, that's what I was thinking that you could do for me, is to tell me about what you do. That's what I was thinking.
Oh,
and
anytime.
What a fantastic! Yeah, wow. Thank you for that.
I told you, when this crap is over, we're getting together.
Great. I would love to. Yes.
Me too.
I'm a triple vax now. You know.
Are you?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. You were okay. You felt okay after your dose?
Actually, I was great. First one, second one, I didn't even feel the needles going in.
Oh, I was sick on the second one. Yeah.
Yeah. But the third one hurt when she gave me the needle, and I just thought she wasn't very good at it. And when I was driving home, I said to myself, I'm not going to have another one for a while.
And really that was this one. Yeah.
that was my feeling. Yeah. And when I got home, I was really tired. And I have three golden retrievers, and I'm single. Yeah, I'm single. I live alone, and well, except for my three dogs, and I walk a lot with them. Minimum of 8K a day. Every day. Not all at once, but throughout the day.
Still, that's amazing.
Okay, you have to stay active. So my dogs need it. So I got to a point when I was sick, or when I had the vaccination, I had trouble getting out of bed, and walking a kilometer was really difficult. But what really freaked me out is my brain went foggy, and I didn't know it got foggy. And I started doing readings, and they were really shitty and really weird. And I stopped. There were a couple of times I did a reading, and then I phoned the person later, and I said, I'm not going to send the video to you because this was not right. And I'll either give you back your money or we'll do another appointment. And I spent a whole week not being able to focus. I couldn't concentrate. I would go out and in the neighborhood I live in would get lost. I'd be driving around. It was like I had dementia. Wow. And that scared the hell out of me. And I thought, oh my God. Yeah. And that went on for about a week.
Wow.
That's a lot.
And then my brain came back.
Yeah, I caught it. Yeah. Yes. Well, we are at the top of the hour. I do.
All right. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I know. It's that time. But thank you so much for joining us. 2022 is another year. I say we do it again.
Let's.
Okay. Yes. It's a date. We're going to do it again in 2022.
You got it.
All right. Happy New Year, Robert.
Happy New Year.
And I will be in touch with you.
Please.
Okay.
Take care of yourself. Thank you.
Hi. Bye-bye now. Okay. Here we go. And we have come to the end of not just another awesome segment, but we have come to the end of another year of the Outer Realm. I know. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. I know. We are at the end of another year. My gosh.
We're coming up on our 200.
Big thank you to Robert Lindsay Milne. God, you're just a sweetheart. Honestly, it's just a breath of fresh air to have on. We've been really lucky. We've been lucky all year, but this week has just been a winding down with very lighthearted talk, and it was really nice. Got a little heavy, but in a miracle sort of way. So thank you, Folgers Coffee, for sponsoring us. We love you. We are so grateful that you have stuck by us for yet another year. thank you to Dr. Snick, aka Justin Snicker, for the intro and the outro, just taking us to that whole other level. We look forward to another year with you as well. So please go to our YouTube channels, International Public Radio, UFO Paranormal Radio, UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials. That word is just hard tonight. And basically subscribe, but don't forget about us on Facebook, The Outer Realm. Please just go and give us a like and keep up with everything that's going on. If you would like to communicate with us, maybe be a guest on the show, maybe want to see a guest on the show, or cover a certain topic, we can seek someone out to do it. Email us at theouterrealmcontact@gmail.com. Again, theouterrealmcontact@gmail.com. Now, new for 2022. My gosh, that's another hard one. We have such a lineup for you guys. There's going to be a whole lot of new faces coming on, and there's going to be a lot of favorites coming back. I promise you, in our traditional Outer Realm style, we will not disappoint you, and there was going to be a lot of surprises and a lot of knowledge coming forward, starting Wednesday night with Peter Muse, who's going to be discussing historical folklore of witches, sea serpents, and magical folk, along with so much more. Thursday night, for the very first time, Les Velez, who is going to be discussing his position with MUFON and Opus, which is the Organization for Paranormal Undergoing and Support. It's going to be fun. So until then, Happy New Year. See you all in 2022. All of you behave, because we want to see you all back here in our chat rooms and listening. So Happy New Year around the world, and we shall see you next year, literally. Good night.
You have been listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, airing live every Wednesday and Thursday evening, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 to 10 p.m. Central, on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.